In the main event, we have the rematch of the year when Islam Makhachev defends the lightweight title against the very man he took it from, Charles "Do Bronx" Oliveira.
Attention! Attention! This just in!
As I was writing this, Charles Oliveira has pulled out of the fight, and the myth, the legend, Alexander Volkanovski has stepped in on 11 days notice. So now, Islam Makhachev defends his title against Alexander the Great Volkanovski. This is an amazing rematch, and hats off to Volk for taking a huge opportunity on such short notice. Their last fight was a fight for the ages. It was a lot of back and forth, and to many, Volkanovski won that fight. It was a battle, and I'm so happy we get to see it again. Islam's plan is always the same. Use his dominant wrestling to win, take it to the ground, and look for the TKO or submissions. And he has a nice submission game. 11 of his 24 wins are with submission, and he has some really good ones on his record. He was able to submit Charles Oliveira by arm triangle choke in order to win the title, and he had a nasty Kimura finish over Dan Hooker. He also choked out a great grappler when he submitted Thiago Moises, and he doesn't always submit guys. As we saw in his fight against Bobby Green, he can take guys down and win by TKO. He is a great grappler, but as we saw in the very first fight, Volk was well prepared and did an excellent job of not only stopping the takedowns, but quickly getting up when he did get taken down, and he made Islam's wrestling look normal. And when it came down to the striking, I'm not gonna lie, Islam did way better than I thought he would. But you can tell that Volk started to gain momentum as the fight kept going. He even knocked down Islam, and he continued to prove how well-rounded he is in his last fight against Yair Rodriguez, where he successfully defended his featherweight title. And he would win that fight by TKO, but he showed dominance in every aspect of MMA. He took down Yair and beat him up there. He would eventually land a huge hook that would hurt Yair and eventually lead to the end of the fight. And now they clash once again, and expect it to be fireworks when an unstoppable force meets an unmovable object. Don't miss out. In the co-main event, we got another late replacement when Khamzat Chimaev takes on the former welterweight champion, the Nigerian Nightmare Kamaru Usman. Chimaev was originally supposed to face the number 6 ranked middleweight Paulo Costa, but Costa had to pull out, and Usman has stepped in on short notice. Shout out to Kamaru for taking this fight on 10 days notice against a monster in Chimaev. And not only that, but this fight will be at middleweight. Both guys are wrestlers, and you casuals might hate that, but these are two of the best to do in MMA. Kamaru used his wrestling to terrorize the welterweight division very early on, but something clicked for him when he became champion. He would finish 3 of his 5 title wins by knockout. He TKO'd Colby Covington in a brutal back and forth war that pushed both guys to the absolute limits. He would also TKO his former teammate Gilbert Burns. He would face adversity early on, getting hurt, but he would tough it out to eventually finish Gilbert Burns in impressive fashion. And lastly, he would knock out Jorge Masvidal in spectacular fashion. I mean, this was a picture-perfect punch that would put the very durable Cuban right to sleep. He is a very good wrestler with very powerful hands, and he's going to have to be very prepared for the young wolf coming up. Khamzat Chimaev is no joke. He is an undefeated wrestler with a record of 12-0, and this guy is a finisher. 5 wins by knockout or TKO, and 6 wins by submission. He has been on fire in the UFC. 6 wins, and 5 of those have been finishes. He has shown that he has great wrestling. He submitted John Phillips in his UFC debut. He would absolutely dominate him and eventually get the Darce choke. And he would go on to ragdoll the Leech Li Jingliang and submit him via rear naked choke in a very impressive first round. In his last fight, he submitted Kevin Holland by Darce choke in the first round as well. And his wrestling has looked very dominant, but he has also shown, just like Kamaru, that he has absolute dynamite in his hands. He knocked out Gerald Meerschaert in 17 seconds, and it was a perfect one-punch knockout. It's so crazy that this is a late notice matchup, but somehow it still remained a banger. It maybe even got better. Both guys have great wrestling and big power in their hands. Don't miss out. This next fight was one that took a huge blow. It was originally going to be a middleweight banger between Nasruddin Imavov and Ikram Aliskerov, but Imavov pulled out and has been replaced by Warlley Alves. And don't get it twisted, this matchup is still very solid, but it's been an absolute blow for Ikram. Ikram went from being matched up to the 6th ranked Paulo Costa, then to the 11th ranked Nasruddin Imavov, and now to unranked welterweight Warlley Alves. It sucks, but as a great philosopher once put it, it is what it is. Ikram is 14-1 with 5 wins by knockout or TKO and 5 by submission. He is still very new to the UFC, but he has so much hype behind him. If you're in the MMA bubble, you might remember Ikram's one loss. It was to current UFC middleweight Khamzat Chimaev, where he would lose by knockout, but he has won 6 in a row since, including his last fight where he would make his UFC debut. He faced a very tough Phil Hawes and he won by knockout in very impressive fashion. He really made a statement because they were trying to get him matched up with ranked guys immediately. He's got really good power in his right hand and the grappling to match. His background in Sambo is the reason his grappling is so dangerous. He will have to be on point because he's facing another dangerous grappler in Warlley Alves. Alves is a welterweight who's 14-6 with 4 wins by knockout or TKO and 6 by submission. He will be fighting this fight at middleweight. He is 4-6 in his last 10, but he has faced some really good guys. He has solid wins over Munir Lazzez, Sergio Moraes, and Colby Covington. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, this is not looking good for him. He is fighting a really good guy, one whole division up, and it is on short notice. Of course, this is MMA, anything can happen. Alves does have a nasty guillotine, but it seems like they're setting Ikram up for a highlight reel finish. He's gonna look to make a statement. Don't miss out. Next up, we got a banger in the light heavyweight division. You casuals see a Russian name and probably think this guy is a grappler, but that could not be farther from the truth. His last fight kinda tainted his image a bit, but I think that fight wasn't as bad as Dana or anyone else claimed it was. We have seen far worse. And also, Ankalaev should have won that fight. I'm sure Dana put the call in. In all seriousness, Magomed Ankalaev is a heavy-hitting striker who is currently the number 2 ranked light heavyweight. He has 9 wins by knockout or TKO and 1 by submission. He is coming off a split draw against Jan Blachowicz, where in my opinion he should have won. He is facing the glass cannon himself, Johnny Walker. I think you casuals for sure know Johnny Walker. He's the guy that dislocated his shoulder doing the worm after winning a fight. Not even his own body can handle him. But he is an explosive striker. 16 of his 21 wins are by knockout or TKO. And after an electric debut, he would go through a rough patch but has been able to win 3 in a row. He beat Anthony Smith by decision. He beat Paul Craig by TKO, and he would go on to submit Ion Cutelaba. The holy trinity of MMA wins. He is ranked 7th, but with the win here, he can jump in line and put himself in title contention. A title shot is probably at stake for these guys. Both guys are very dangerous. Both guys are very powerful. It's going to be fireworks. Don't miss out. So we get a casual's worst nightmare opening up the card when 2 relatively unknown bantamweights face off at UFC 294. Saeed Nurmagomedov takes on Muin Tajik Gafarov. You casuals would probably recognize the Nurmagomedov last name because of Khabib, but a common misconception is that Saeed is related to Khabib, but he isn't, like at all. They are both from Dagestan, but that's basically it. Khabib's relatives are Umar and Usman, so Saeed has kind of gotten a boost in popularity just because of his name, but don't let that fool you. This guy is good. He is 17-3 with 4 wins by knockout or TKO and 5 by submission. He is 6-2 in the UFC with really good wins over Saeed Yokub Kakramanov, Douglas Silva de Andrade, Cody Stamen, Mark Striegel, and Ricardo Ramos. He is coming off a decision loss to Jonathan Martinez. The fight was a grueling one and he definitely slowed down, but he is lightning quick on the feet. Even when he was gassed, he was still very fast with the hands and the feet. And he's going to have to make sure his cardio is on point when he faces Muin Gafarov. Gafarov has been a part of the recent rise of fighters from Tajikistan. He was bantamweight champion in the LFA. He made his UFC debut in his last fight where he would lose to John Castaneda by decision. He lost the point because of a headbutt, but he was fighting at an insane pace. He was pushing the tempo, mixing up the grappling, and swinging big. He likes to make it a very nasty fight. He is 18-5 with 10 wins by knockout or TKO and 7 by submission. These guys aren't too well known, but with the stage as big as UFC 294, they are going to look to make a statement and stand out. Don't miss out. Alright guys, that was my rundown of UFC 294 Makhachev vs Volkanovski 2. I hope you casuals learned a thing or two. It's insane that 3 of the fights on the main card went through a lot of changes, and somehow this card is still good. But some of the other fights to look out for are Muhammad Makhachev versus Tim Elliott. Makhachev is an exciting 23-year-old flyweight prospect. He is trying to prove he's the real deal against a tough flyweight staple in Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott is all go. He's always pushing the pace, and it's going to be a fun one. Don't miss out. Also, Bruno Blindado Silva faces off against Sharabutin Magomedov. Both guys have insane power. I don't know how this card didn't make the main card, because for Bruno Silva, 20 of his 23 wins are by knockout or TKO, and for Magomedov, 10 of his 11 wins are by knockout or TKO. Do not blink during this fight. Don't miss out. It's going to be a great night of fights. Do not forget to tune in, and I'll see y'all next week for Fight Night Almeida vs. Lewis, another card that is going through changes. But until then, protect your neck and take care.